In the first case here, we're going to take a look at, there was a complaint that they had suffered lightning damage. And so our assignment, Envista's assignment, was to investigate the cause of the damage, the claimed damages, and then actually scope the damages as well. And so this particular installation was out in the desert, southern part of the United States. And this is the same picture on the right that I showed you earlier for the components of, or the typical installation. And it is typical. When we arrive on a site, we want to be pretty careful taking a look around for snakes and spiders and just local hazards before we really start anything else. Sunstroke, heat stroke, actually the high tower group that climbed this tower had a heat stroke incident just prior to coming onto this job. We need to be careful there. This is a tall tower. It's about 1,800 feet in the air, and then the TV antenna sits on top of that. Yeah, so these are up there a ways. When we start thinking about lightning, there's a lightning detection network throughout the North America here. It's pretty good, but it'll see cloud to ground strikes, and it'll see cloud to cloud strikes, maybe up to 300 feet in the air, 500 feet, something like that, typically. And then above that, maybe not so reliable. So we have to factor that in when we go looking for lightning reports or assessing what the weather conditions were. Keep that in mind. These towers end up a lot higher. So these folks complain that we have very high VSWR, and the reason they lodged that complaint is that VSWR, again, voltage standing wave ratio, as that comes up, they start to worry about their equipment getting destroyed by the power that is reflected back from their installation. So typically, if you have damage up on your transmission line or up on an antenna, that inconsistency will reflect some of the electrical energy back to the equipment. If that gets too high, you'll take out some equipment, and then you have a major loss on your hand. So they claim that this was due to lightning that damaged the transmission line. Here's a couple pieces that they showed. These were actually replaced prior to Envista coming to the site. There were a few sections like this. These are just we'll get an overall look at these pieces here in a second, but these are components, part of a transmission line. They're just a couple of copper tubes, as we see here, looking into the end of one of these. We have an inner copper tube and an outer copper tube there on the right. You see a finger there that has just picked up a little bit of soot from the inside of this installation. I think this was a 50,000+ watt transmitter, high energy, that'll hurt you. And it also generate a lot of heat on a poor connection. These lengths that we see in the left picture are 20 feet long. And so to run up a tower of 1,900 feet, 1,800 feet, we have quite a number of these things, and a lot of connections and a lot of places to go wrong here. In this particular case, we started looking at the facts, which is the first step once we get onto a site. Just record the information and get some facts. This TV antenna is 1,900 feet tall. FM antenna is at 1,700 feet. The dryer is not working properly. Each of these transmission lines usually have a dryer that just keeps the air dry. Moisture and electrical energy don't go well together. We looked at some evidence of soot and residue at we call it the bullet. It's the interconnection between the two pieces of transmission line. What we noticed was there were, through the inspectors that we had hired to come on this job, the tower climb crew, 8 different models of transmission line had been installed over the course of about 40 years. Each of these with a little bit of a different electrical characteristic. We saw arcing. We saw that the TV antenna is owned by a different broadcaster. We noted that the tower is grounded properly. That's one of the guards against lightning. No specific reported date of loss. Transmission line fasteners were in disrepair. So over 40 years, there had been quite some neglect going on here. No broadcast logs, no maintenance logs, old transmitter tube, which was recently replaced. No dryer in place anymore. Previous loss of line pressure, they also did not monitor that, which left it open to the possibility of contamination within that transmission line. The tower crew helped us note and image some mechanical damage at several locations, and we noted this arcing on the interconductor in several locations that had been replaced. So here's a picture that shows what was going on there. Interconductors are just these are just copper tubes. We see some well-developed heat damage here on these pieces. We see a few holes up near the connectors, and here in the right side on image C here is one of the mating connectors that is actually a burned copy of what you see in the bottom part of image B there with the white disc on it. In this case, that has been all melted off, and this is a heavily corroded piece now. That came out of a piece that they replaced, which if we think about lightning and arcing, they behave in a couple of different, certainly different ways. The way we were able to get at additional locations to look at is there are some electronic tools. This is a little bit of a busy chart, but I wanted to include it just to show that there are some electronic tools that we can use to assess the quality of the installation electronically prior to even having to bring a climb crew out, perhaps. In this case, we picked out some areas that we directed. Then with this data, we directed the climb crew to go take a closer look at for us. And so what we ended up concluding here is because of the fact that this thermal damage was so well developed through these pieces, and some mechanical damage associated with what I believe to be, or what we concluded to be arcing, because of the high voltage that's involved here. It could have looked like lightning possibly, but these characteristics that I just mentioned make it much more likely that this was due to arcing, which was the result of unmaintained or poorly maintained sections of line throughout the preceding decades. So that was our conclusion in this case. Inadequate maintenance throughout the system had a cumulative effect towards degradation of the overall broadcast. So once they replaced that transmission line and got it up to snuff, things were well again in this